Good morning, students. We were discussing sources of business finance. Under that, we have seen uh, shares, which are of two types: equity shares, preference shares, and we have also studied about debentures. So, I had given you a classification of various sources of business finance, which can be classified on the basis of duration. On the basis of duration, business funds can be classified as short-term funds, medium-term funds, and long-term funds. Then we can classify various business funds on the basis of ownership also. So on that basis, we can have owners funds or owned funds, and the borrowers funds or borrowed funds. So, in other words, these owned funds, they make the fixed capital of any business, and the borrowed funds, they make the working capital. And owned funds, they usually are long-term finance source of finance, and the borrowers or borrowed funds, they are short-term source of business finance. So, various types of sources of business finance under these two heads can be own funds, shares, as you have seen already, that shareholders, they make owners of the any business, they have their shares. So they have voting rights and they can interfere in business internal matters also. So under that we have two types: equity shares, preference shares. The difference you have already understood. Then comes retained earning. I have already given you definition of all the sources of business finance, and I hope you are clear about their meanings. So we'll be discussing them in detail now to know their features and to know their advantages and disadvantages. We'll be taking up each of the business source of finance one by one, but I hope you are clear about their meanings by now. All right, so next one comes depository receipts. Under this, we have GDRs. You must have seen the definition of this term also. It can be abbreviated as Global Depository Receipts. Then is ADRs, which is American Depository Receipts. And then is the IDR, which is Indian Depository Receipts. So we are going to study these also. Let me tell you one more thing. In your syllabus for this session, uh, only the owned funds are there. These borrowed funds, all that part has been omitted, but I would still like you to know the basics of these also, so that it can be helpful in your future when you'll be continuing with this topic in your next class also. So you should at least understand the basic of these borrowed funds also. So all right children, we have already completed this here you have completed shares, equity shares, preference shares, and let's now take up retained earnings, that is another form of owned fund. So retained earnings, how do we define retained earning? Retain, hope you understand the meaning of the word retain. Earnings you understand. So retained earning, which remains after making all the payments, after fulfilling all the liabilities, the funds which is left, the earning part of profit which remains with the company, that is called retained earning. So retained earnings is the amount of net income left over for the business after it has paid out dividends to its shareholders. Often this profit is paid out to shareholders, but it can also be reinvested back into the company for growth purposes. So we have seen usually what happens, the profit that the company, any business makes, that is distributed among its shareholders. पहले उससे क्या करते हैं, जो कंपनी पे जो लाइबिलिटीज़ है, जो बोरोड फंड है, उसको रीपे करते हैं, एंड आफ्टर दैट, आफ्टर लाइक सारा जितनी भी जो पेमेंट करने होते हैं, जितनी लाइबिलिटीज़ है, उनको पूरा करने के बाद जो अमाउंट बचता है वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो जाता है शेयर होल्डर्स में एज डिविडेंड्स. But sometimes some of the companies, what they do, they retain a part of that profit and they keep it aside for future आई मीन फ्यूचर नीड्स ऑफ द कंपनी, एक्सपेंशन के लिए और ग्रोथ के लिए और कुछ ऐसे लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए वो उसका कुछ पार्ट रिटेन कर लेते हैं, एंड दैट वी कॉल एज रिटेन अर्निंग. सो इसको इस तरह देख सकते हैं, बिजनेस के ऑपरेशन से वॉट एवर प्रॉफिट इट मेक्स, द नेट प्रॉफिट दैट goes to pay the dividend to shareholders, and then retained profit is retained earning which is reinvested back into the business for future growth. Let's see merits and demerits of retained earnings. Merits is dependable and permanent. Dependable and permanent, like a company can depend on its own funds instead of अरेंजिंग फंड्स फ्रॉम आउटसाइड. अपना ये सोर्स ऑफ फंड पे डिपेंड हो सकते हैं. उसके लिए इट मेक्स द कंपनी क्वाइट रिलैक्स दैट दे डोंट नीड टू आस्क अदर्स एक्सटर्नल सोर्सेज टू जनरेट फंड्स. एंड उनका एक परमानेंट मीन्स कि इट इज़ दे ओन फंड, वो उसको जब चाहें अपनी कन्वीनियंस के अकॉर्डिंग यूज़ कर सकते हैं. नो एडिशनल कॉस्ट. इस तरह की रिटेन अर्निंग पर ना किसी को कोई डिविडेंड देना है. दे डोंट इवन नीड टू पे एनी इंटरेस्ट, दे डोंट इवन नीड टू पे एनी टैक्सेस ऑन दिस अमाउंट. सो इट देयर इज़ नो एडिशनल कॉस्ट इन्वॉल्व in retaining the earnings. No burden again, no burden of, no liability, no burden of paying dividends or interest. Operational freedom and flexibility. You have seen that the shareholders, they have a right in business, I mean they carry voting rights, and they can involve themselves in business internal matters also. But this retained earning, it does not give any right of any kind. I mean जो management का अपना है, they can utilize this retained earning as per their requirement. They are not answerable, they are not accountable for this retained earning to any of the shareholder or to any of the creditor. Control, the entire control will remain in the hands of board of directors, the management. इसमें शेयरहोल्डर्स का या किसी का कोई इन्वॉल्वमेंट नहीं रहेगा. डीमेरिट्स क्या है? डिससेटिस्फैक्शन अमंग द शेयर होल्डर्स. शेयर होल्डर्स में डिससेटिस्फैक्शन क्यों होगा? बिकॉज दे माइट क्लेम देयर राइट ओवर द होल प्रॉफिट. उनको लगेगा कि जितना भी कंपनी का प्रॉफिट आ रहा है वो सब उनमें डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होना चाहिए, कंपनी अपने पास उसको रिटेन ना करे. तो एक दिस मे बी अ रीज़न फॉर डिससेटिस्फैक्शन अमंग देम. फॉल इन मार्केट प्राइस ऑफ शेयर्स. शेयर्स का प्राइस, जैसे कंपनी का जिस रेशियो में प्रॉफिट बढ़ता है, शेयर का प्राइस उसी तरह हाई हो जाता है. बट अगर उसका कुछ प्रॉफिट पोर्शन कंपनी रिटेन कर रही है तो शेयर का प्राइस ऑब्वियसली उस रेशियो में नहीं बढ़ पाएगा. अनसर्टेन सोर्स ऑफ फंड. देयर इज़ ऑब्वियसली अनसर्टेनिटी, क्योंकि ये नहीं पता कि कब किस टर्म में कंपनी को कितना प्रॉफिट होने वाला है. तो उसको कैलकुलेट करना इज़ नॉट पॉसिबल, बिकॉज देयर आर लॉट्स मैनी लायबिलिटीज़ ऑल्सो दैट कंपनी हैज़ टू बेयर. तो उसमें से कितना रिटेन कर पाएंगे, दैट अमाउंट इज़ ऑलवेज अनसर्टेन. अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट इज ignored since this retained earning is uncertain. So opportunity cost can also be not taken into account. बोनस शेयर्स लीड्स टू ओवर कैपिटलाइजेशन. अब शेयर का प्राइस कम हो रहा है, शेयर के अगर हम प्रॉफिट का कुछ पार्ट रिटेन कर रहे हैं, शेयर्स का हमारा प्राइस डाउन हो जा रहा है. सो विल हैव टू इनवाइट हम कंपनी को पब्लिक इशू करना पड़ेगा ज़्यादा शेयर्स का, एंड दैट मे लीड टू ओवर कैपिटलाइजेशन. सो दीज वर द मेरिट्स एंड डीमेरिट्स ऑफ रिटेन्ड अर्निंग. Tomorrow we are going to take up another form of another source of borrowed fund, that is a depository receipt. So this is all for today. Thank you and have a nice day.